Why do we care about Lucid? It's the partner to Nuro. And Nuro is one of the key partners for Uber to execute on getting some of these autonomous cars in the market. So and remember, like a week or two ago, there was this, false report about them looking to restructure whatever. So look, they reported the stock got crushed. Q2 didn't really hit. Gross margin was negative by like 100%. They're burning, I think, over $1 billion. I think in the quarter, the deliveries weren't great, but at least they've kind of recognized that autonomy is the top strategic priority, and that the Uber Nuro Robotaxi project is a, quote, must-win project. And they put this all now on Lucid Technologies. Hopefully this isn't part of the, a corporate structure where they're putting the Robotaxi in a protected entity while other stuff happens somewhere else. I don't know what the full, color on that is, but I think it's at least good and obvious that these guys are focused on working things out with Nuro. I guess my question to you is, it is August, early August. The timeline is clicking quickly for all three of these companies, Uber, Nuro, and Lucid, to deliver on some type of autonomy robotaxi in California, in the Waymo market, by year end. Do you think they make it?
No.
And what do you think the holdup is?
The holdup, in my opinion, will be the regulatory holdup. And I want to clarify, there is a high likelihood and a high probability that they'll be able to start service that is not paid. Because you can go talk to Rob and he can break down all the permits you have to get. That's his role. That's his job. And he's great at it. There's a high probability they can offer free service, but not paid service by the end of the year. They must deliver. But if you're looking at this and saying, okay, you said you're going to deliver a Robotaxi service and it's free. It's like, huh? You put all this money in and, you can't charge? It's just, I said this going on 2 decades now. Your first launch market for a Robotaxi service should never be California. And I have to give a lot of credit to Alphabet. And when they made the decision to go to Chandler, it was the right decision. And look what happened when they made that decision.
Well, the biggest problem then is really for Uber, because you can't, to call something a market launched for Uber means like it's on their app and you're paying for it. Even if there's a safety driver in there, like AV Ride in Dallas is launched. And, we know some of the issues that they've had there. So for Nuro, it's not a big deal because, like, okay, you have 100 vehicles. You can at least be out there showing the world that your tech works in these Lucid cars, even if it's probably going to be employees or whatever it is taking it. And then hopefully, I guess, that they can get through some of these regulatory hurdles and have a true launch in early 2027. So I don't think it's the end of the world, obviously, if what you're saying is true. But, you and I follow this pretty closely, right? It has been talked about as an end of the year type of launch. And it's one of the more important near-term partners for Uber. So, I guess we'll have to continue to monitor that closely. And I guess, lean on your buddy Omega again.
This is a theoretical, hypothetical scenario. Let's say that we are correct. The regulatory environment stops them from launching a paid service in San Francisco. And then you and I are sitting here. We're getting over our turkey coma, getting ready, hopefully, to go to London. And then all suddenly across the terminal, Uber Nuro launch service in Houston. What is the reaction from that if there was a pivot because of the regulatory environment to Texas, where there's a lot clearer path to doing this? They could launch in Texas by the end of the year in Houston if the technology's ready. So I want to put that out there. What would the reaction be?
I think the reaction would be very positive for all three of these companies. And you just say, look, we don't need to deal with California. We can get things going, and it doesn't have to be a ton of cars. Like, if you can get something launched in any market, 25, 30 cars launched, ideally with not a driver in there, we'll see, by the end of the year. I don't care whether it's California, Houston, or, wherever, Peoria. Get something on the tape. And then you kind of move forward to, is Lucid getting to that point where they can start this program to get to the 35,000 units, which would be huge for Lucid as a company. obviously huge for Nuro and getting to their next, kind of wave of expansion. And obviously a big positive for Uber as well, where there's, like I talked about before, like not a lot of, scale progress that is likely over the next 12 months.
You're right, because if Lucid can figure out the business, figure out the manufacturing, and hit the manufacturing targets, Uber has a very clear line of sight to vehicles. And as you and I know, that's one of the most difficult things that happens in this industry.
Let's put this in context one more time. 35,000 car program. The deliveries that Lucid had in this quarter was 4,000, right? So this is, this is a big deal for Lucid. I think they get that. So we wish them the best. And obviously, as that production line gets going, would love to visit it.
Love to visit it. And then I'll ask this question here for the record. At some point, does Lucid just become a contract manufacturer for robotaxis and shut down the sedan and gravity business? That's something to watch.